Hi, this is Mark Steven Johnson, the writer and director of Ghost Rider.
And this is Kevin Mack, the visual effects supervisor for Ghost Rider.
You know, Ghost Rider, from the title character on, the effects were so important in this film, and that's why I really wanted Kevin to be here with me going through the film, because from the very beginning we knew that if the Ghost Rider didn't work, if he didn't look right, if the effects weren't going to work, that we didn't have a movie. So, Kevin, thanks for doing this with me.
Well, thanks for inviting me. It's pretty cool to be involved with this part of it.
This was the logo you're looking at here is the classic Marvel logo, which they change every time for each film. This one for the Ghost Rider. Pick Agency did this for us, which they just did a fantastic job.
Nice moon.
Yeah, where'd you get that moon?
It was one we had laying around.
That's an Apollo 13 moon, isn't it?
It could well be.
Yeah, I think it is.
It's
Apollo
Interview with the
13 moon.
Vampire, one of those.
Yeah.
Legend of the Ghost Rider.
This was the opening I always wanted, the classic Western opening, and you can't do better than Sam Elliott's voice over a rider in moonlight.
Story goes that every generation has one.
The scene actually went through a couple different versions before we got it to where we had so much information to get across here, and there's so much visually looking on it. It was a tough one because you've got, you got the visuals and you've got the music pounding and the sound effects going, and there's a lot to take in here. But it was all important.
A lot of story to tell.
There was a lot of story.
He knew he could never let the devil get his hands on it. So he did what no rider has ever done.
Actually, a lot of this was scheduled in the beginning to be shot out in the desert. We were actually going to go on location. We scouted Broken Hill in Australia where we shot the film. And of course, the more that we looked at it, the more we realized that it just wasn't controllable. And everything that was outside started to slowly but surely come inside.
Well, it's cool too, like these shots and a lot of the night stuff. We got the opportunity because we were creating it all in the computer. We had the opportunity to make it look more like what night looks like to your eye,
right,
instead of the typical Hollywood, big lights lighting a small area kind of thing.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of also when I think with the tone of look, the film was always supposed to be, for me, kind of very pop culture. You know what I mean? It was supposed to be pop art. It was supposed to be, the classic idea of the classic Western and the classic monster movie and comic book and just a very fun kind of graphic feel to it. It wasn't always supposed to be reality. It wasn't supposed to be heavy and dark and brooding and real. It was supposed to be the kind of film that made me fall in love with movies and comic books when I was 12. That was, to me, the spirit of this going in.
Quintessential and iconic.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. This was actually trickier than it looks. We had a slight mishap here in one of our crashes. One of our passes there going through the flaming ring where our bike began to slide and one of our stuntmen had to pull up so he didn't run into the other one. And that resulted in him getting a broken leg in the ring there. A crash that we actually used a tiny piece of later, as you'll see. Thank God he was okay. Kind of the rule of thumb is if your stuntman's okay, you can use the shot. For myself, because any stunty will tell you as soon as they wake up or regain consciousness, the first thing they'll say is, "Can you use it? Can you use it?" So this was also our own carnival that we built for this scene. This was just an empty field outside of Melbourne, Australia.
Kirk did great making all these sets.
Yeah, Kirk Petruccelli, our production designer, is just a genius, and he really gave it a great small-town Texas feel. These are two wonderful actors that we have here with Matt Long and Brett Cullen. Matt actually, it was one of those things where I had two young actors to choose from, both terrific. One looked a lot like Nick and one didn't. And I went with Matt because he's such a good actor. He really doesn't look anything like Nicolas Cage. But when push came to shove, I went with the better actor. And Matt's just fantastic. He's actually wearing a prosthetic nose in this movie. which no one would ever notice. The makeup guys did such an incredible job. He's got Nick's Roman nose there. So when you see him, it kind of, I always double take whenever I see him now because he's got this kind of button nose. And I'm so used to the way he looks here in the movie.
It is really seamless. So often you can spot those noses, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's just dead on. This was actually, this whole scene was cut out of the theatrical version. It was, you know, it's always that push and pull of trying to get to your movie star and to the Ghost Rider quicker. And that's why we had to lose some of these scenes, and it really breaks your heart. That's the great thing about DVD, of course, is that everyone gets a chance to see the great work these guys did. These scenes really showed the heart between father and son, how much they loved each other, depended on each other. And, of course, that's why he makes the deal in the first place. So it was, there was a lot of back and forth at the studio on these scenes, and rightfully so. You know, for the pace of things, you want to keep things moving. But I really did miss him, and I'm really happy to see him back here now in the extended version. This was actually even a simple scene like this just takes so much work. This is a hill with that tree you're seeing is all fake. It was a combination of concrete and wire mesh, and it's about $150,000 tree.
Yeah, and all the flowers.
All the flowers are fake.
Everything.
Those are all, yeah.
That one went back and forth. We talked about doing it CG, but then you had a lot of coverage there.
That's
and then
right.
They were going to have to build some of it anyway, and it wound up working very well, I thought. It really looks
so
like a
too.
real tree.
I really wanted that kind of like, you know, giant feel, you know, of Texas, just flat and dry and empty. And there's actually a few homes back there. You can only see a couple barns, but there was more that we took out in the digital intermediate. We just erased them, so you can't see them. It's funny because even with the eucalyptus trees in the background, you really believe that you're in Texas. And I remember a few times we had to stop, and they had to use the air horn to scare the kangaroos off the background, and then you're suddenly jolted back to reality of where you're at.
I remember when we drove out to this location, we stopped. I forget for what reason on the side of the road at one point, and there was some roadkill there that it was just the weirdest thing. It was like an alien or something, some kind of animal.
I don't know what it was.
Yeah, you have just no idea what it is.
Some random marsupial. That young actress you're seeing playing young Roxanne Simpson is Raquel Alessi. She's really wonderful. And a dead ringer for Eva Mendes, I must say.
She really is.
I've actually had some people that watched the movie that said to me, they said, Mark, I have a question. Why did you get a different actor to play young Johnny, but Ava did both?
Oh, wow.
They really believed that she played herself, which I think is amazing.
Some of the flashback cutaways of her later in the movie, like him remembering the early days or whatever, are really, really great. They gave a certain heart to some of those scenes I really liked.
This is the scene coming up here. It used to end here in the theatrical version. The extended cut is, again, this is the stuff that always kind of breaks your heart. But this nice little scene here between father and son where dad wakes up. And this is a really interesting, you know, situation here, because we found that when people watch the movie, because we're dealing with the darker subject matter, deal with the devil, selling your soul, they really wanted Johnny's motives to be pure. And they are, but there's also a little bit of selfishness going on here. He wants to run away with his girlfriend, and he just found out that he can't. And so this was one of the scenes that we felt just push it a little too far towards his own selfish concerns. Dad says, where are you going? And he says, nowhere, Dad, I'm going nowhere. And so there's a couple of scenes like this in the film that we took out. Again, wonderful scenes, but it felt a little bit like he wasn't doing it for such a noble reason. That last shot was actually digital. Was a visual effects shot where Mephistopheles was actually in that shot, and we digitally erased him. And here he comes. This was another one. This was another one that I hated to lose. A little bit of a Peter Fonda moment. Far out. It was one of those questions of, are you defanging your villain too quickly? You know? And there's a lot of tongue-in-cheek stuff in Ghost Rider, but that one felt like it might be gilding the lily a bit, so we decided to leave that one out. This is also an interesting entrance for him, to see him for the first time as Johnny sees him, versus getting ahead of our hero.
Thanks. Perhaps you'd
You run a show?
greatest show on earth.
I love this scene with Peter. He just, there's something
Thanks, but no thanks.
complex about him as a devil. Like it's not just clear cut or something.
Yeah, it was a different kind of devil, because I felt like we'd seen the devil a lot as the kind of talking, dancing, laughing, goofy devil,
yeah.
you know, like in Devil's Advocate, you know, the tap dancing devil, or in Constantine. And I've seen the devil in the, you know, $2,000 business suit, Robert De Niro and Gabriel Byrne, End of Days. But I really wanted a Western devil. I like the Johnny Cash outfit. I like the idea that he needs to fit in wherever he goes. He needs to seduce you. A lot of people don't catch that shadow on the wall. It's one of those great things that you hear people, did you see that? And people are like, no, what are you talking about? And they'll go back and watch it again just for that. There's a lot of that here in the movie. But, and again, here, circling him kind of like a shark, making the deal, seducing him, so that before Johnny knows it, he's lured him in. I think that's a really interesting way to go with the devil. And, of course, this is Mephistopheles, which is based on Faust and based on the devil as the ultimate salesman.
Oh. I'll take...
Peter actually has 24-karat gold flakes in his skin and in his hair, which hair and makeup gave him to give him a literal, feeling of Lucifer, and being the golden child.
Sunrise tomorrow, your father will be healthy.
There was a feeling for me in this scene that I really liked. That I felt a little bit like the devil is there and, he's doing his job a little bit, but that there was a slight undercurrent of compassion or something. Like, yeah, he's doing the thing and he's making the deal. He's going to do that, but something about, like, I don't know. It was
Well, I think, for me it was always, the devil, he's got a job too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, he's doing what he's supposed to be doing. He's here on Earth trying to collect souls, and he's here to weigh the good versus evil, and he and, the idea is God and the devil have a deal, and they have their place. That's why actually the Ghost Rider is working for the devil to kind of keep order. Mm-hmm. It's like that was the whole idea for me of the Devil's Bounty Hunter, which I came up with for the movie, to give the Ghost Rider a function, was that, look, the devil has a job here, and the deal is that nothing gets out of hell. It's all got to be about free will, so mm-hmm. Then you find out who's got faith in God and who deserves heaven and who deserves hell. And when something gets out of hell, that goes against the deal, and he calls upon the Ghost Rider to drag its ass back. So everyone's got their place here, God needs the devil.
Not anymore. I can't explain it, but I feel healthy as a horse.
Here's another big scene coming up that we cut. Probably the scene that I missed the most in the movie. Another, for the same reason I stated earlier, of pacing. It used to go from here to Dad riding by himself, but instead now we see Johnny packing up. Again, the selfishness about why he did this. It was just a little too confusing for the audience, or they didn't like it. I shouldn't say it wasn't confusing. They just didn't like Johnny being so selfish. They wanted to just see him do it to make his dad healthy, and that was it. This scene, as beautiful as it is, really slammed home the fact that Johnny was doing it for more selfish reasons. But I think Brett Cohen in particular here is probably his best scene of the movie.
Send her away. If we don't leave now, it'll be too late.
Oh, that's great, boy. That's great. 2 kids on the run with nothing. If you're going,
Always talked about the fact that guys like this, like Barton and Johnny Blaze, they don't come out and say "I love you," hug each other. They're not that kind of guy. They're motorcycle guys. They're a couple of men living together. You're not going to get that. What you're going to get is him throwing him the keys to his motorcycle. That's his way of saying "I love you," and that you're a man now, and that you're in charge of your own destiny.
That's a great moment there. It's like that static moment where the character makes the decision.
Right.
you take Grace.
Yeah, the screenplay for Ghost Rider was more difficult than I anticipated. It was the comics, you know, it was such a great character, and there were great stories and mostly great artwork, but there was never like a great solid run that you would use for the film for me. And so writing the screenplay took a long time because we kept running into the problem of, you know, what is the Ghost Rider's job? Why does the devil give him all this power, and then the Ghost Rider uses it to fight evil? It never quite rang true, and that's why I think it hasn't worked in the past. And so for me, it really took me to the moment of figuring out, giving him the function of the devil's bounty hunter, making it a Western, making it something different from the other superhero comics out, superhero movies. And once that fell into place, once I wrote that, everyone said, okay, that's it. The Ghost Rider is the devil's bounty hunter. Now he has a function. And then our story was about, this time something got out of hell that's never gotten out before, and that's the son of the devil. And that was like Fistful of Dollars. You know, he's working for one bad guy, chasing another bad guy, and he's caught in between and trying to find a way to bring them both down. But it was, the script took, you know, it took me over a year before I cracked it. And then, you know, a year to prep it, shoot it, and a year and a half to post it. So this movie for me has been about 3.5 years of work. And it's not Lawrence of Arabia, you know. It was supposed to be like a fun flick about a dude whose head goes on fire. And but well worth it. I love the film. That was a bonus shot, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's cool.
Talk about that one, Kevin.
Yeah, we threw that one together because we needed something there. It just seemed like, you know, having the devil just suddenly appear in the road in a kind of a static landscape just didn't give us the impact we wanted. So we did that sort of streaky zoom dolly effect as a post thing, and then threw in one of the outtakes of the devil design in there.
Yeah, that was a devil face that we tried at the end of the movie that we rejected, but here for a split second it worked really well, I thought. Yeah, the windmill was just one of those things that I really love the idea of the stopping and the reversing position for you know, for the idea that evil is present. And I also gave me this feeling of Once Upon a Time in the West, you know, that creaking at the beginning of the film when they're waiting at the railroad station. And again, for pace, it went out. But I don't know. For me, again, I love this stuff, and so I don't feel like it lags. Personally, I don't. I'm in no hurry watching a movie. You know, I'm there to sit, and it's not a 3-hour flick. But I do get it. I get getting to our hero and getting to everything quicker. I thought this was a great effect, Kevin.
Yeah, it's cool.
The idea of infusing him with hellfire and seeing that it's literally being impregnated in him. I really love it.
Well, and it's cool the way it really, the artists here really captured that translucent quality of the flashlight in your mouth kind of look.
Yeah.
You know? Really feels like fire under the skin. And
it was a beautiful work in the sky, too. They were bringing in the storm. This is a classic Crossroads vibe that I wanted to get in. The Crossroads always being classically where the deals with the devil are made. It's a crossroad represents choice. It's a cruciform. It's a very kind of holy spot. Transition into Nick Cage. Tough shot out there in the trying to do a rain gag and a wind gag and an actor not closing his eyes. It's pretty tough. This is a giant spider cam shot that we did starting in Nick's eyes, and even though I intercut here with the crowd, it's one continuous pullback all the way past these trucks. Pretty spectacular piece of equipment, spider cam.
And that's all there. Those are real trucks.
Yeah, for some reason people think they're CG trucks. 'Cause something about the color of them or the lighting them. Although this crowd you put in. A lot of the...
Yeah, we did put in the crowd.
This is the showgrounds out in Melbourne. This really was supposed to set up that vibe of the rock concert, the rock show, This is all Nick with a camera mount in the front of the bike. This is all him, and then we go into CG World right here, which I think is great work. The idea of just getting into Nick's head as he goes airborne. The idea for me was always that, you know, he always feels cursed. He's always thinking about this. But when he goes airborne, for a little bit, he's free. And then the quick flashbacks to remind him what got him here. And then this here is the crash. This is an amazing crash. And it really gets a huge reaction from the crowd when they see it. That was all planned except for the head hitting the tire. That was a guy on a wire and the bike on a wire. And but his head was never supposed to hit that front tire. It was a really scary moment when it happened. It was so violent. He was unconscious, and luckily he was okay. And again, he wanted us to use it, so we did.
It's a phenomenal stunt, but the rig removal to take out all the wires and the stunt mats and everything was quite a stunt
really,
as well.
The mat was the big one, you know, because he sunk into that mat. So his foot and his elbow are disappearing, and you had to replace all that.
Yeah, it was a tough one. I love that.
Okay, if you look really close in the background, you might see this young Hispanic guy out of his mind.
Was so awesome.
If you see him in the background, you'll see him jump. I think you could see him.
He went completely nuts.
Oh,
and flipped
man.
over the fence.
He wanted to be in
was
the movie so
fighting the
bad, and he
guys
did this huge dive. And I think you just catch a little bit piece of it, and then he got wrestled to the ground. And
he made it past all the guys, though. He fought his way past.
yeah, he did. He was determined.
Man.
He was determined. This is the beginning of some of Nick's ideas of the Johnny Blaze character that I thought were really interesting. And it started off with the jelly beans. And Nick's thought of it was that, look, if you've made a deal with the devil and you really believe that he's going to come knocking any day, you wouldn't be drinking Jack Daniels and inviting the demons in. You would be having jelly beans. You would be listening to Karen Carpenter music and watching monkey videos and, you know, doing things that feel safe and make you, you know, childlike, because any moment, you know, the devil could show up. And Nick equated it to being in a dentist chair, you know, and that was the idea behind some of the Carpenter music as well, is that, you know, and it all feels nice and calm, but any second, you know, you could hit a nerve. And that really took it away from the initial idea, which was just the kind of stereotypical hard drinking, chain smoking, you know, Johnny Blaze, which we've seen before, and was a cliche that I had written. And I think that really helped make it something different. Yeah, Donald Logue is, I think, one of my favorite actors out there. I've always been a fan of his. I remember saw him for the first time in the first Blade movie. I remember he kept getting his hand cut off. And Donald's a great actor. He really was important to me because he's the only friend Johnny has. And even he doesn't know that much about Johnny or what's really going on in his life. He's worried about him. He knows something's not right. He suspects. But he doesn't know for sure. And the thing about Donald is you feel like anybody who's got that guy for a best friend is a good guy. So it really made you like Johnny even more when you realize that Donald was his friend. And he's got that quality. This was another one, like the shadow in the tent, that some people don't quite catch. That's a beautiful effect. One of my favorite effects.
Yeah, that's a cool one.
This was also a huge job.
Yeah.
This originally was a push to the desert to a tree where some crows were falling dead to the ground and a foot stomping in the ground. And that was it. And it just wasn't enough. It wasn't worthy of a Blackheart entrance. And this is what we came up with. I love the clouds in the sky here. The moaning
really
skulls.
Great.
And the fire looks so beautiful.
Yeah,
it's pretty
this
spectacular.
is a cool shot.
And then the big cheesy scare moment, which I love. Again, this is all stuff we thought about initially shooting out in the desert for real. And it all eventually came up on stage. I wanted that kind of cracked clay earth outside that you see out in the deserts. And we started building.
Well, and this is, again, that kind of quintessential bar in the middle of nowhere thing. And I felt like we really got that night the way it looks to your eye thing instead of the Hollywood night, where it's like the lighting feels much more real and practical. And there's just enough, you know, you instead of it going completely black out there, you get little bits of the hills and the bushes and stuff.
I think you might be lost, boy. You deaf or something? Angels only in there.
Angels? Really?
Yeah, really. You got a problem with that?
As a matter of fact.
You know, it's funny because I've always been a fan of Wes Bentley's since I first saw him in American Beauty, and I wanted Wes to play the Son of the Devil in this, and it was, you know, the studio, Sony said, forget it, he'll never do it, he passes on everything. And I'd heard that about him as well, but I went after him anyway, and we sat down, had a beer, and talked, and we just hit it off. And he dug the script, and I showed him all my artwork, and it was one of those things, just two people really connecting and getting along, and he was like, yeah, man, let's do it, I'm down, let's go. And they couldn't believe it. It's got such a great intensity.
That's great, great. You got a lot of expensive bikes in here, man. I told you. How many times? Well, JB, I said it before, I'll say it again.
This is the great thing about Melbourne. You just saw in that scene as they were walking down the alley, the cobblestone alley, is that it looks like everything and nothing. I mean, it looks like so many different cities, but it looks just like itself as well. I mean, Melbourne has it's such a unique city. You know, that you can turn one way and you'd think that you were in Chicago, another way you're in New York, and another way you're in Europe.
Yeah.
It's got Victorian architecture, it's got very modern architecture, it's got a river going through the middle of it and it looks like you're in Pittsburgh. It's just a fascinating city, and it had so much to offer, and the people were so amazing. Everywhere we wanted to shoot, people just welcomed us with open arms. This is a video that we saw on the internet that just made us laugh, that Nick loved, and we went about trying to get the rights to it, and took quite a while. But this gentleman here works with this monkey and works with I think has a habitat for him. The chimp just cracked us up, and this is again one of those childlike things that keeps Johnny feeling safe and doesn't want to talk to Mac. Doesn't want to talk. You notice when he comes in the loft, he right away hits the music, pours himself something, starts talking, goes right to the TV. He doesn't want to talk about anything. He knows Mac's going to want to ask him some questions. Mac's suspicious why Johnny keeps crashing and walking away. And Johnny doesn't want to talk about it.
You know, I really wanted to play Mac. You know, just same name and everything. And then you cast Donald, and you know, he could be my brother. He looks just like me.
Well, eventually they'll make that cheesy straight-to-video Ghost Rider movie, and you can be Mac then.
All right, that sounds good. I'll take what I can get.
Damn right you will.
Every day for the rest of their lives.
Are you talking about your daddy's accident?
Well, I'm just looking for a sign.
I really wanted Johnny's Loft to be like, you know, my ultimate fantasy bachelor pad. You know, it's just like if I could have my perfect place, what would it be like? Well, it'd have a pool table, and it would have, you know, it'd be huge, and it would have motorcycles everywhere and parts on the walls. The idea was that, you know, he doesn't separate his life from his work, you know, that they're one and the same. And so there's motorcycle parts everywhere. It's like a garage. And I really like that. I also like the feel that it felt kind of church-like in a way. You can see the stained glass windows in the background and the arches that carry on the design throughout the place. And obviously there's a lot of religious aspects to the film as well, and I wanted to keep that going. This is an old cartoon from Disney that the Dancing Skeletons cartoon that we got the rights to, which I just fell in love with. Now the scene in here, in the Broken Spoke, was made up of several different cuts. You know, it was one of those things where we had so much information to get out, and it's no fair to make any actor play Mr. Exposition, but Wes had to do it here. So we actually have some stuff here that was shot in Melbourne, and then some stuff that was shot up in Vancouver on 2 days of pickups, where we couldn't rebuild the back of this bar again. We just had Wes do it in front of green screen and literally mimic his moves around, and just kept him a little bit larger, you know, than he was to cover up the actual shot. So this is that's Melbourne. This is Vancouver, and this is Melbourne here. But it'll bounce back and forth between two different continents throughout the scene. It's pretty seamless.
And sometimes even when the camera's moving, it's Wes is in Toronto, or rather Vancouver, and the background was shot in Melbourne.
I was really happy with these. especially this one with these visual effects shots.
Those were fun.
They're great. I mean, the elementals were something that I came up with just because I didn't want Ghost Rider to keep fighting the police over and over. It got boring. And the idea that he'd have to find different ways to defeat each villain was a fun idea. And seeing them for the first time in this bar, the hidden, which were supposed to be fallen angels who have been hiding in their elements for years and years until they became part of them, wind, water, and earth. And to see them come alive here was pretty exciting.
They were fun because they were really pretty elaborate designed effects, really hand done. Like each one was done really carefully. And
this is a big change here from theatrical version. This is a new scene. We went back and forth between using this or using the park scene, which is in the theatrical. And I always like this scene. I like the father and son facing off, the idea of dad basically saying, "Come home, son. You don't want to go to war with me." But the other shot we decided was more visually interesting because we had more people to cut to, and the park with the big statues is quite gorgeous. But I like this scene, and I like the performances. I think it's fun, and I really like Fonda with that gold tan makeup out in the desert. He looks like his father in Once Upon a Time in the West. Looks like Henry Fonda. And it gave me that kind of cool Western vibe and I miss it. I think Wes really showed here his temper as well. He's been so cool so far until here. He just loses it. And you see the power struggle, you see the hate for his father. And maybe even a little bit of jealousy for the Ghost Rider, who he thinks his father favors over him.
I'll bury him, and then I'll bury you.
I also like this effect of Mephistopheles disappearing here, Mac. I thought that was pretty cool. A different way to go, just getting swept up in the wind of it.
And that was one of the great things about this movie is that, you think of it as a film where it's all about Flaming Skullhead guy. But from an effects standpoint, it's a real potpourri. I mean, we had all kinds of one-off effects and invisible effects and then, really cool design, kind of abstract stuff. And it was really fun.
That music you're playing in the stadium there, as well as a couple other places in the film, is by Spiderbait, a group from Australia that became very good friends of ours, especially Cram and Wit. Have become two of my closest friends, and they did a bunch of songs for us in the flick. And absolutely great band. You should check them out if you haven't heard them. I recommend
amazing.
it.
Crowd's kind of out of control.
These scenes were shot inside of the Telstra Dome in Melbourne. It's all, it presented quite a problem because it was the idea that it was going to be a field goal to field goal jump. But they don't have, obviously, traditional American football fields in Australia. They have footy fields for Aussie rules football, which are, I think they're 180 yards.
Yeah,
instead
they're
of 100.
much bigger.
They're massive.
They're way wider, too.
So you had to cheat that to make it look like an American football field.
Yeah, we replaced the whole field itself and also brought in the stands to add more people to narrow the field. Put in the goal posts and all that.
These are all green screen shots here behind Ava, filling in those, what was a...
I think those were plates we actually shot. We grabbed at a footy game.
Aussie rules football kicks ass. Yeah. If no one's ever seen it.
Yeah.
Aussie rules is unbelievable. That's a nice little bit from Alexis Porter. Played a little makeup girl. She came in and did the He's Good. And this little banner between the two of them here I thought was really sweet as well. Again, just for pacing reasons, you get to a certain point where you got to get to the Ghost Rider. But I like this stuff. I think these two are pretty adorable together.
5, 4, 3, 2. How's your dad?
Johnny Blaze, thank
you. Yeah, in casting Roxanne Simpson for the film, she's blonde hair and blue eyes, as all comic characters were back in the day. And it was really important for me to get an actress who was gorgeous, but also extremely likable and funny. And that's why I cast Ava. She didn't look like the comic book character, but I didn't care so much about that. I really wanted her to have the right spirit. And it's rare to see a woman who's that beautiful and also be that funny. you know, and she is. She's extremely likable. You know, a lot of beautiful women intimidate people, but Ava doesn't. Everybody roots for her, men and women both, and it really made a huge difference in the film. It again, just like with Donald Logue, you know, and having him be the best friend, having her be the girlfriend makes you like Johnny even more. And that was something I had to think a lot about because, you know, when you talk about the devil and deal with the devil, and there's a lot of people in the world, in this country in particular, who are going to be bothered by that or worried about that or think the movie's too dark for them. And I wanted to make sure people didn't think that they knew that this is a good guy. He just made a bad choice. And everyone deserves a second chance. That's what the film's about in a lot of ways.
I like that she kind of gave the audience a point of view some of the time, in that she's the one who's skeptical of the whole thing and just like, don't be ridiculous, and doesn't believe it, so that when she finally sees it and does believe it, you believe it too.
Yeah.
Like there was something about it that she made it very real.
Say you two had some kind of history.
That was it, man.
Yeah, I think Ava Mendes is terrific. Big fan.
Sure you don't want to stick around?
Is this outside the Telstra Dome again, downtown Melbourne?
I'll buy you a donut. Come on, Roxy, it's Johnny Blaze. Let's go.
Thank God you listened to me. Took the cars out. Would have been suicide otherwise. This way, if you come up short, see, you'll come down on some nice, soft, green grass.
Ladies and gentlemen, Johnny Blaze will not be jumping 50 cars today.
When I came on to Ghost Rider, Nicolas Cage was already attached to play the role of Johnny Blaze. It's something he's wanted to do for years, and he'd been through different versions of the script with a different director, Steve Norrington at one point, who I'm a big fan of, and it just never happened. So for me, it was we sat down and met, and we just hit it off. And he said, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "I want to do a Gothic Western." And he said, "That's about the coolest idea I've ever heard." And so he liked what I saw, and the two of us hit it off. And of course he's as big a fan as I am, which is such a, you know, it's so great as a director and as a writer to have a shorthand with your star who knows the character so well and who believes in it and loves it as much as Nick Cage does. It really made a tremendous difference for the film.
This is the deal, man. Halfway down the ramp, I want you to hit the nos, okay? Do not hit the nos too early. If you hit it too early...
Jumping these helicopters is something Nick and I always really wanted to do, and was in and out for a while because of cost. And then we realized that the only way we could do it is if we did it with CG. And that was a tough one, Kevin.
Yeah, helicopters are always really difficult for some reason. They have an elusive quality to the scale of the paint on the surfaces or something. It's very difficult. I like that shot a lot.
Yeah, I like that shot too.
Just everything CG in the frame, but I think it works. I love what you did, the idea on these, on the slow motion of him in midair. Like it just, instead of being the action sort of really quick thing, it becomes this ballet.
Kind of dreamy.
Yeah, like that shot was...
And I think it's nice how it worked out that he, you know, this time the flashbacks are very different from the last time. You know, this time you realize he's going to make it, and because he's got a reason to make it now. He's got a reason to live. And you see him, you know, he's thinking about her. He's thinking about the girl that got away, and this is he really believes this is his second chance. This is a little scene that got cut. It was just a silly little thing, but I always like that little kid up there. He threw his helmet to. Bam! I always think that kid's going to smile and his teeth are going to be missing. You see that? That's what he should have blacked his teeth out. Just made like a Three Stooges joke out of it.
Oh, that's funny.
Who catches a helmet like that? That kid caught it with his face. Did you see that? It's horrifying. I was like, oh my God, he knocked that kid's teeth out.
See, I'm always still thinking about how hard the fireworks in the shot before that shot were.
Now, this was a scene that really was inspired by watching Rob Jones, our stunt rider, work to see what he could do, these amazing tricks in the motorcycle. He is the best rider, I think, in all of Australia, one of the best in the world. And when we saw that, Nick was like, oh man, I want to do that. I want to flirt with her like only Johnny Blaze can. And that was the fun of the scene. And this is, obviously things are going to get quite dark coming up. And this is the last time they really are going to be happy together for a long while. And I love this idea that, you know, he was going to use his bike and try to find a way to bring out the 15-year-old girl in her again, you know?
What's your name? Oh,
Very dangerous stuff. This stuff makes me very nervous because, you know, you can't. There's no helmet, and it is what it is. There's a truck coming at him right there, and it doesn't matter that he was going 30 miles an hour instead of 70. It's still very scary stuff, and makes me very nervous shooting that kind of stuff because I can't stop anything. I can't control it. Especially when he's doing those front wheelies and whatnot, you know, because his legs over the barge, front wheelie, no helmet, and there's not just the truck next to him. There's a camera truck, and it's very dangerous stuff.
He really is Johnny Blaze.
He's
that
amazing.
guy, Rob Jones. He's just phenomenal.
Rob is unreal.
Howdy.
Are you trying to kill yourself?
I want to talk to you. I haven't seen you in 56,000 years.
To me, that was always the coolest thing about the character of the Ghost Riders. He was part horror movie, part comic book superhero, and part Evel Knievel, which makes him the coolest guy in the history of the planet. You know, you don't get cooler than that, you know?
Well, I'm not trying to say anything. I'm saying that means something.
Sorry!
Don't mind them. They're fine.
We are on the side of the freeway.
Let's get some dinner.
There's improv. There was improvisation in the film from time to time, mostly from Nick. But I would find that usually the improv would come up in the rehearsals, and Nick would jot it down, or I'd jot it down, and we'd go from there. But there were certainly a lot of times in this film where we'd try different takes, and Nick would throw something out. I find what Nick is so amazing at is he has a way of finding the peculiar aspect of a situation that isn't just peculiar, it's real. You know, and I think, you know, the mistake a lot of people make sometimes, they try to be quirky just for quirky's sake. But Nick's actually, you know, it may seem odd sometimes, his choices, but they always feel real. And, you know, people are weird. People are odd.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that people find something they relate to, even in Johnny Blaze, which, you know, that the jelly beans and the monkeys and the, you know, the Karen Carpenter music that's kind of goofy and corny and funny and sad and weird, and all those things really just kind of, you know, they strike home, and they make him somehow accessible.
I think a lot of us actually listen to the Carpenters when we're feeling low.
That was Kevin Mack that said that. Just,
yeah.
You know, I did not say that.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying.
Or like this, you know, the idea that she's still a carny girl, you know, and giving her that magic 8-ball. It's odd. It's an odd thing to do, but it somehow feels real to me.
You can't live in fear. You made that jump. No one else made that jump. You're the best rider.
There was some debate at the time about this scene that she was already at dinner waiting for him, and he's still talking to himself in the mirror. And some women in particular did not think he was worthy of her. Some of our female crew members were like, well, screw him. Look how gorgeous she is waiting for him at dinner, and he's already late. But I believe Johnny was just trying to psych himself up. He really didn't want to hurt her. He wanted to believe it was safe. And of course it's not, because this is going to be the night where the devil comes calling. This was a tricky one to do, because whenever you're going to interrupt the major storyline, it's got to be worth it. And I was just cutting back to Roxanne, watching her getting tipsier and tipsier, and you know, that's always a risk because you don't want to break the momentum you've got going here. This is what we've been waiting for, the night where Johnny gets called out and turned into the Ghost Rider. But I did believe that the love story was important here, and Ava's so funny in the scene, and I really, you know, I tip my hat to Richard Francis Bruce, my editor, because he went through this with me many, many, many times. All of the movie, but especially this sequence in particular. You know, how much is too much of her, and how much do we, you know, when's a good time to cut? When's it okay? When are we interrupting the flow of the action? And that was, I think it worked out quite well, until we don't see her now again for quite a while. When we do, we get a nice laugh from the audience because she's completely shit-faced, and we've forgotten all about her after everything we've been through later in the night. And again, Ava plays that classic comedy. She's great at it. There's always a Western motif going on in the film. You see those horses behind him up on the wall for a fictional cigarette company, our version of Marlboro. It says "Run Wild." You know, there's always that feeling of the West calling Johnny back that you'll see throughout the film. Little nod from Peter there saying "nice bike." Of course, it's the same bike that he rode in Easy Rider when he played the role of Captain America. I had him model it exactly. It's just a different paint job. I really wanted the ultimate motorcycle icon to be the devil in my motorcycle movie, so I was thrilled when Peter said yes.
You're the best, and I'm your greatest fan. The posters, the video games, the crowds screaming, chanting, Johnny, Johnny.
The shot of Johnny walking down the alley, being called to his motorcycle, I think is one of the most beautiful shots in the movie. It looks like an oil painting behind him. I've always loved it. And that's Russell Boyd, our DP. Russell won the Academy Award for Master and Commander, and I felt really, really lucky that he was available to do this film. He's just fantastic. And Mark Gully, our camera operator, I worked really closely with a lot of these shots. For me, this is my second action film, if you will. Daredevil was my first, and I think I'm much more comfortable now in setting up my shots, which is great because Gully and I would work together in setting up the shots and whatnot for a lot of these things, and it was fun to do. I mean, bringing this thing to life was an absolute pleasure. As much work as it can be, as difficult as it can be. It really was bringing a childhood character, hero to life. The crews in Australia are as good or better than anywhere in the world, and I was so happy with all of them. And again, it was such a pleasure to work with Russell Boyd. He's such a gentleman, Russ Bob, you know. I mean, he's just such a great guy.
Really great guy.
Such an artist, you know, and there's nothing better than like working with a great artist who doesn't continually remind you that they're an artist. They're just a cool guy to hang out with, you know. And then you see their work and you're just like, oh my God.
That's a cool little sequence going through the town and melting
It's a great
parking
sequence.
meters.
Yeah, those are the ones that you get nervous about. Big stunts that you only get one shot at. All those storefronts you saw were, Kirk Petruccelli built in an empty lot there. So cars flipping through them and crashing and fire and explosions. And you get one shot at something like that. And if it doesn't work, you're screwed. So thank God it did. Again, stunts, everything were terrific. This is, again, classic. Once upon a time in the West, kind of you see there's actually a tumbleweed, and we're in an abandoned train yard, and you know, the station manager actually is walking around with a lamp, which I don't think anyone's done for about 50, 60, 70 years. But it looks cool. He'd also, by the way, if you ever watch Family Guy, if they ever make a live action version of that movie, this guy'd be playing Peter. Doesn't he look exactly like him?
Yeah, he totally does.
It's uncanny.
This was an amazing location.
It was. This is a train yard where they refurbish old trains from every era, and it's absolutely amazing. You walk through these huge rooms full of people painting and restoring these gorgeous old locomotives. It's really spectacular.
And it is a really old train yard.
Well, here it is. This is what everyone has been waiting for. And we knew that if this didn't work, and the movie wasn't going to work. This was the biggie, and I really, this is really Nick's feet on fire. By the way, that's also very nerve-wracking when you set your star's feet on fire.
And I think that's the only real hellfire in the movie.
I think it is too.
Yeah.
The rest is all CG. And this was, I really didn't want the transformation to be something we'd seen before, like at the end of Raiders with the waxy kind of melting heads. I really wanted to feel like, he was exploding from within, bursting out.
Yeah, this was really hard because, we shot this Steadicam moving around him in circles, and he's jumping all around and everything, and, we had to track a 3D version of his head and his hands and match all of the movements and expressions and everything. And then all the physical simulations of the smoke and fire and ash
and the performance of Nick in that is so fantastic.
Yeah,
you
well,
know?
that gave us so much to work with. Like, that just makes it really fun.
Well, when I wrote that scene, I envisioned it just as pure pain. And Nick said something really smart. He said, it's painful for Johnny, but it feels good for the Ghost Rider.
Yeah.
It feels good to come out. The Ghost Rider wants all that horrible flesh off of him, you know?
Yeah.
He wants to go out and rock it. And I thought that was so smart, you know, and that's when the scene takes off. It's when Nick starts laughing maniacally that you're like, oh my God, this is so sick. For the European version, we had to cut part of that scene. And it was my favorite shot, the close-up of him with the hand popping. And that scene had to come out because it was just too violent, I guess. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah, people on fire were the one thing they wouldn't budge on, so it's a problem for this movie. This is a great one, too.
Yeah, love that. That's funny every time.
And Wes's reaction is funny as well.
And I know that because I've seen it over 50,000 times, that shot.
That was us... doing one clean pass where we yanked our stuntman Eddie into a bag by a wire, just jerked him as if he was being hit, and then we pull him out. We do another pass where the truck really smashes into the train, and then Kevin, you just put them together, and it's seamless.
Yeah, exactly. Little extra massage on there, but.
This is actually a very long story, but to make a long story short. Gressel was actually going to be one of the last character to die in the film. And then while we were prepping, they decided to use Sandman in Spider-Man 3. And I was told I couldn't use Gressel because he was too similar to Sandman. So that was a bad couple weeks around the production office. So instead we came up with this compromise that I'd still get to use him, but he was going to be the first to go. Which... was a bummer for Lawrence Gressel, my actor. He did such a great job, but that was a great death, though.
Yeah.
It really looked fantastic.
Oh, it was fun.
Very cool.
We actually physically simulated all those chunks all falling and bouncing and everything.
That's the kind of stuff that always blows my mind.
Yeah.
The little things that I love that the animators do when the bike, instead of just coming through, the bike hits, you know, and kind of rocks as it hits part of the truck. And that's what makes it feel real. And of course, this is, I think, one of my favorite shots.
Well, we had trouble getting it through that space, you know. And I think most people don't realize that's a CG bike.
I don't think they do.
You know,
either.
it looks real.
This one they know is a CG bike.
Yeah. It wasn't supposed to be.
No, but it is now.
Yeah, we shot 2 plates, one with the real bike, or with the original bike, and one with the Hell Cycle, and we're going to try to line them up, but they just turned out to be too different. So we went with CG for both of them, and it really gave us more opportunities to do cool stuff in the transformation.
Yeah, it was such a huge part of the movie. I really didn't want the Ghost Rider to like flatline, where you just meet him and he's the same. I wanted to make sure he kept changing. So first he had this outfit, and then he has the Hell Cycle, which is so badass. And then you see the penance there, and then you see him later upgrade his outfit. So he's got a new look with the spikes, you know, and it was important to me that he keeps getting cooler as we go. This is a chance to show, of course, the penance there. This actress is hysterical. Her name is Rebel.
So funny.
She's hilarious. Really a talented girl. And when I met her, she just cracked me up. I thought she'd bring a little levity to some of these scenes. And so again, this was here at the bridge in Melbourne, and this was the first time we're going to see the penance there, which one of the very unique powers of the Ghost Rider. And this is a huge thing for us, Kevin, that we kept working on throughout the entire shoot and through post to get this right.
It was, for me, when we were, you know, it's sort of ill-defined as a thing because it's so abstract, you know, as you're reading it in the script or whatever. But I saw this as one of the cooler opportunities of the project, because it's just, you know, there's so much you can do with it.
The idea of the penance there is that the Ghost Rider can look at you and make you feel all the sins you've ever created, all the bad things you've ever done, and they'll revisit you now tenfold. So I always looked at it as like being in a room with all your shit, and then someone cementing the window, you know, and you're stuck looking at it over and over and over for the rest of your life. You can see his eye blink there. It's a little CGI blink. But I really wanted to make it clear that he wasn't dead. The Ghost Rider doesn't kill, at least not people. He never kills. That was important to me. And that was something that was always in the comics as well. Instead, the penance stare is like a fate worse than death. It's karma. You know, that's what it really is.
Yeah. It's
karma.
judgment.
Yeah.
It's almost like self-judgment. It's like forced guilt.
This was, I think, one of my other favorite shots in the film was the retransformation, which I think in some ways is more gruesome than the transformation, you know?
Yeah.
Because it's burn victimish. I mean, it really looks real. You see that
well,
crackling, burning, blistering skin.
The idea was based on this thing of a topiary growing in and filling in his flesh. So it's like the tissue is crawling across the bone and then filling in out to the surface. And that's essentially how we did it. We kind of grew the skin on in chunks.
This cemetery that you see here is the Melbourne General Cemetery. It's a fantastic place. It's it goes on forever, and it's got these huge broken crosses and stone angels, and it's a real sad kind of place because it feels a bit abandoned. A lot of the graves are from the 1800s, and they've fallen into disrepair, and there's no one to keep them up. So there's a lot of them are cracked with weeds, and it's supposed to be a very haunted place.
Yeah, there's so many stories of people, famous authors, being buried together, and the graves go deep, and the locals will try to get you really stoned and get you to lay in the graves, and I don't recommend that.
Well, I spent the night out here. I got drunk out here one night and slept out there.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, because I really wanted to see if it would happen, and Nick was going to go with me. And at the last minute he called, he goes, "Oh, I don't think I can go." He had that voice like, "My wife's not going to let me sleep in the graveyard with you tonight." So I did it by myself, and I that was a shack that Kurt Pictorcelli built. But see, you can see how gorgeous it is. It's absolutely spectacular. Amazing. So I just went out there in my rocking chair and a bunch of whiskey and some cigars, and I just started drinking. And I just started hanging out, waiting for something to show up to see what would happen. A security guard of ours had actually quit. He said that he had seen a ghost following him around the night before, and he was freaked out, and he said, "The hell with it, I quit." So and I believe in all that stuff, so I went to check it out. And I waited there for a long time, and the only thing that came was a really friendly, really lonely security guard who was mentally challenged, who didn't want to be alone, and was a big movie fan. So he and I hung out, talked, and then finally he left me about 5 a.m, and I went in the bed in there, and I laid down, and I was surrounded by candles that were lit. I lit all the candles and the skulls and everything. I'm really thinking this is my chance.
Wow.
And I finally just started to fall asleep. It was about 5:15, 5:30 in the morning. My eyes just started closing. Boom, 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 boom. The doors raps. I jump out of bed. I was so scared. And I open it up, and it's him. And he's like, "You want a cappuccino?" Oh. And I was like, no, dude, I'm going to go. He wanted to make a coffee run for me, but I could tell there was going to be no ghost sighting that night. You can see here, like, you see those twisted, broken fencing. That's all real. That's the way a lot of it looks. It's just very dilapidated.
Yeah, and it's right in the middle of Melbourne. It's just amazing.
It really is amazing. For me, just like I wanted the ultimate motorcycle icon to play the devil in my movie, I really wanted the ultimate Western icon to play the caretaker. And Sam Elliott, I mean, he's done a lot more than that. He's a great multifaceted actor, but to me, he just screams Americana in the West. I love him, man. And I mean, I wrote this with him in mind, and I was so thrilled when he did it. He's such a classy guy, and everybody loves Sam. You know what I mean?
Awesome. He's so cool.
I mean, wherever you go, people see him and they just light up. You know. Especially men, you know, especially like young. He and I'd be out having a beer somewhere, and he'd look on and goes, "Oh God!" I'm like, "What's wrong?" "Roadhouse." I'm like, "What?" He goes, "You wait and see." And some guy come like, "Dude, Roadhouse is my favorite movie, man. You kicked ass in that movie." You could always tell if it was Roadhouse or Tombstone, but the Roadhouse guys had that look in their eye. You know, they just loved that movie.
Oh, that's funny. He was very cool. He came out to see us at ImageWorks and see the work and everything, and gave the crew a pep talk.
Here's what a fan Nick is of comics. He has a flaming skull tattoo on his shoulder. That shoulder right there, there's makeup over it. So quite ironic that we had to spend time in the makeup chair covering up our flaming skull to play Ghost Rider. You know?
Yeah.
It'd be like, I don't know, Christopher Reeve with the Superman tattoo, and then he got the role. It's just surreal, you know? So it's actually there. It's
Presence of evil.
It's pretty beautiful tattoo.
I remember now. Last night. There was some punk.
I love the scene between Sam and Nick. I think they're great together. And it's a nice quiet moment after all the craziness we saw. A little bit more. It's also, again, a burden Sam with some exposition here, but stuff that needs to come out.
Greatest weapon. All the riders have it.
Have there been others with my...
Sam was actually really ill during these scenes, and his voice would come in and out and stop, cough and hack and wheeze, and he's a trooper. I mean, Sam's a tough guy. He'd keep going, but it made it very difficult to get to the scene because he has pages and pages of dialogue. And as is my wont to do, I continually rewrite things on the spot, which piss him off. Say, God damn it, Mark. But then we laugh about it later. But it's always a tough thing when you have a big speech and you get handed new lines and you're sick to boot.
Forever in that godforsaken place.
What's this have to do with Blackheart?
Blackheart.
He had so much realism to the thing, too. Like, you can't not take him seriously.
Yeah, and in the comics, Caretaker was actually part of the Danny Ketch, if you're familiar with Ghost Rider, the Danny Ketch era, which is the 90s Ghost Rider. I was able to kind of cherry pick my favorite things from the 70s Ghost Rider and the 90s Ghost Rider. And Caretaker was a Danny Ketch 90s version. So was Blackheart. It was great for me because, you know, I got the best of both worlds.
Thanks. And thanks for the info. I feel much better now that I know I'm the Devil's Bounty Hunter.
Howard Mackey is the one who created Caretaker, and I believe Blackheart as well. He's a great comic book writer, and I've been told that he based the character of Caretaker on Sam Elliott. So there you go. There's life imitating art, imitating life. This is a nice little moment too, between the two of them. Or Sam's really, what he's doing here is, Caretaker's testing Johnny. He's saying, what'd you get for your deal? Did you get money? Did you get fame? And his answer's heartache. And this is the moment where the Caretaker's thinking, this kid's not like the others. He might be like me. He might be different. And maybe I can trust him. And this scene here was a scene that we cut from the theatrical version. It was just showing Roxanne doing more of her kind of, you know, the reporting, her investigative reporting, which kind of got lost in the film. It turned out not to be that important really to the story. And so we lost it in terms of just for pacing again. But great performances from everybody, I think, here in the scene. This is back in the train yard. But it seemed to set up a promise to something that never quite happened when she mentioned sulfur, which is brimstone, which is, you know, that she was going to be on the trail of the Ghost Rider, but it never really paid off. It wasn't worth holding on to, even though she looks adorable in it.
There you go.
This was a major job by Kirk Petruccelli and his crew dressing this set. This is all practical up until a certain point where you see the smoke going down there. Then that's a digital extension you guys did. But this was something I thought was really interesting. You don't usually see, you know, the hero showing up the next day to look at the damage he caused while being the superhero. And I really kind of like that idea, you know, that he can't say what he caused last night. He's like an atomic bomb. Just everywhere he goes, he realizes that he's going to be danger. He's going to be harmful. He could hurt Roxanne. He could hurt people he loves. And this is a reminder of all that. Again, this is like a little throwaway scene that we did with Rebel that ended up becoming, I think, in every trailer for this movie. Some people hated it. Some of the fanboys that really didn't like, you know, any humor in their Ghost Rider film hated her particularly. And actually, there are message boards and movements of hating the goth girl. You know, it says, dump the goth girl. Vote here, you know. So I went on the board and said, she's funny. She ain't going anywhere. Laughing.
On scene.
I leave bite marks. She's great. I remember Richard Francis Bruce, my editor, and he didn't think this was that funny. He's like, "What's so funny?" She's just like, I'm like, "Come on, it's hysterical." I did get a laugh, and he was like, "Oh, all right, you're right about that." That was one I was right about anyway.
See, you did me a favor last night.
This is again just trying to show a different way of showing a typical lover's quarrel through Stuart, the cameraman's lens. This is always kind of interesting. You know, you get those little things in a movie that no one notices but you.
Mm-hmm.
My thing was always, where's she going? If you look at the street here in front of them, it's completely blocked with cars and shit everywhere. And they get and they drive away. And I'm always thinking, where did they go? I always wanted to put like sound effects off camera of people screaming, "Oh my God, stop my legs," you know? And just, you know, Stuart plowing through this.
You can't drive
See,
here.
look in front of him. There's nowhere to go. It's completely blocked. He's just going to go. You don't care. He's just going to plow right through him.
Hey, Captain, I got something.
This scene coming up, it just kills me. Poor Nick Cage works out 3 hours a day to get this body, right?
Yeah.
No one believes this.
I know.
Everybody believes this is his digital abs.
I get credit for all his working out.
It's unbelievable. It kills me. And this is what you got to love about Nick Cage, right? Is that he gets in this kind of shape for this movie, and he doesn't do it for a love scene. He doesn't even do it for a fight scene. He does it for this.
Yeah.
So he can make these faces in the mirror and look like a complete goofball, you know? That's what I love about him, is that he's fearless. He's never afraid of looking silly, you know? And most actors, as movie stars, they're always aware of that. And I think it prohibits them sometimes from really going out there and doing something different.
Yeah.
And Nick never does. He's always like, "Let's do it, man. Let's try it. Let's go for it." And I really admire that.
Yeah, he has a real, like a fine artist mentality.
Yeah, he does.
He really reminds me a lot of my friends that are painters or musicians or whatever, that he really has a creative mind.
Possessing spirit through concentration on and manipulation of the fire.
This is a scene that we're using to show that he's trying to get control over his power. That little speech he just gave was something Nick actually wrote down that day on his sides, which I thought was pretty great. And again, this is there's so many superhero movies out, and I remember when we were doing this, and Avi Rod was saying, "You can't do that. That's Human Torch." It's like, Avi, it's okay. It's just one quick thing. And I was, okay. The scene here between Roxanne and Johnny was a scene I was really excited about, and is one of my favorite, probably my favorite scene between the two of them. It was something, again, I mean, it's funny with a movie like this, because people always say they want something new. Critics always say they want something new. Then when you do something new, you get slammed for it.
Yeah, I love this scene. This scene totally makes the other stuff real.
I do too.
Because it just plays so, you know, it's just right out there in the open. They're just talking about it.
And this was one of those scenes where it's just like, wait a minute, what if the hero who's always trying to keep the big secret to himself, you know? What if he just blurted everything out? What if he just told her everything?
Yeah.
And said, man, I mean, that's what we would really do. We would be so desperate to talk to someone, especially the person we love more than anybody. We just blurt it all out and hope she understands, you know? And of course it goes horribly wrong.
But where did Bill and his hibachi come from? That was
Nick. Yeah,
that was so great.
Bill, and it just kept going.
Yeah,
he just got it. Now he's got like a whole backstory.
I know.
Bill's neighbor he just got a hibachi, and he's grilling out again. Makes no sense, you know what I mean? But
God, that's hilarious.
And hibachi, such an odd term. All the Aussies were like, "What's that? Like a Barbie?" I'm like, yeah, it's like a Barbie. I think there was a lot of what the hell are you guys doing from the Aussies on set. I think it was but they were down for it. You know what I mean? The Aussies are the most laid back people in the world. It was all no worries, you know?
Yeah.
We're really hard workers, but they also have a great attitude and everything. But they were just like getting a kick out of this. They're, like most countries, they're not big comic book, culture. And so they were just kind of really curious about what the hell we were doing, I think, all the time. You know, we'd have people putting green neoprene skin diving hoods on with Christmas tree lights, and they're like, what the hell are you guys doing? But, you know, they were game. They were down for anything.
You know, it's tough when you have to go on location and be away from your family for months on end to shoot a movie. But if you got to be somewhere...
Be in Australia.
Melbourne is like the greatest place in the world.
It's
that was just so much fun to be there.
Yeah, it is.
Great people and a great city and lots to do and good food and
great bars.
Really fun.
Lenient police force.
I thought we agreed we wouldn't go into that.
Talk about that. There's Nick's big confession, which just kills me. Something about, again, the way that he inhales.
Yeah.
We've all been there. We've got to confess something. You can't quite catch your breath, and you're trying to work it all up. And and then, the way you can cock that one eyebrow just kills me. And there you see Ava's eyes darting back and forth, which I loved as well. Like, she's already got an eye in the door. You see her?
Yeah.
She's just like, she's already thinking of an exit, you know? Which I love. I mean, again, she's got great comic chops. That's why even when she stands up, she says, the way I see it, I got two choices here. She's already backing up. She's leaving. You know? I'm out of here.
But it's so ironic that this scene, which is so funny, but it gives so much weight to all of the fantastic craziness that follows because as funny and weird as they are, it's so believable. It's so real.
Yeah.
I'm getting control of it. I'm trying to.
So tonight, you'll...
I believe so.
And she reacts here so much like anybody would. Like, oh, right, okay, sure.
It's great to see this scene in a I don't know if you've ever seen the film with a real audience, like just stepped in and watched it. They love this scene. They love the movie, you know. It's just one of those things that, again, going back to the critical reception of this film was so bad. You know, we knew it going in. You know what I mean? You always know you're going to get killed in a movie like this. And you know the review's going to be bad. I didn't think they'd be that bad. You know what I mean? And then you're like, wait a minute. You know, the movie comes out and it's a hit. It's a huge hit, and it's breaking records, and the audience scores are great, and people are loving the film. And you're going, what happened? I don't understand it. How can the movie be so bad and yet everyone's loving it?
Yeah.
And it's making all this money, you know. And thank God, you know, people had a good time with it and went to it, and you know, we're digging it because. You know, it's you can't make these films for critics. You just kill yourself, you know, and you really. I took a very distinct way to go. I very purposely went very, like I said, very kind of pop art, kind of, you know. I really embraced the absurdity of it and just had fun with it. Just made it funny, and goofy and scary and fun, and just the reasons that I fell in love with movies and comic books and westerns and horror flicks and everything when I was a kid. And you know, you could go the very dark way, the very gritty way, and that's really valid. It's just not the way I would have gone. And traditionally, those kinds of films don't do as well either. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Especially when you're dealing with the devil. You're dealing with a very dark subject, and you're really going to limit yourself if you're going to make a dark, violent devil movie.
Let's try this again.
This movie, actually, considering the subject matter, is actually not as dark as Daredevil. And again, I mean, I remember some of the criticisms of Daredevil, the theatrical cut and the director's cut, was that it was joyless. It was too dark. It was bleak. I remember reading, you know. And then you have fun and you just kind of go have a great time with something like this and say it's goofy and silly and light and all this kind of shit. So at some point, you just got to say the critics and all the haters and just go make the movie and then see if you're wrong or if you're right. But the bottom line is, at the end of the day, you got to like your flick, you know. It's
entertainment. The idea is that it be entertaining, and I think a lot of times the critics forget that it's
it's like I don't see Helen Mirren's name in the credits of this film. You know what I mean? This is about a guy whose head goes on fire and rides a hell cycle, you know? Yeah. If you're looking for some really in-depth art house flick, you're really in the wrong movie.
Oh, man, I wasn't depressed for a week after seeing it. What a drag.
That's just cracks me up.
I'm asking you to help yourself. I watch a lot of TV, and I know what you're doing.
This is another great Nick Cage moment. He's just funny as shit, you know. Just, you know, you can't quite tell if he's with him or sincere. He's actually being sincere.
Yeah.
You know, but he's just so weird.
Yeah.
He's a bit touched, you know what I mean, in the head from just everything he's been through.
Yeah, yeah.
So I give him a pass and all this kind of stuff, his character, you know.
Well, and it makes so much sense because people that live those completely shielded lives often just develop weirdnesses that nobody's ever gone, that's really weird, man.
Yeah.
You know?
You can't talk like that.
Yeah. Like
This is
you and I, for instance.
Arthur, yeah. This is two great actors. But the young fella here, Arthur Angel, was actually a bartender at Cookie in Melbourne. Really? Yeah. And he bought me some drinks, and I'm like, he's like, yeah, I want to be an actor. I'm like, oh, shit, come on down, you know, I'll read you. I'm thinking I'd give him like a, you know, some background part, you know. And he came in and he read, and he was really good. Wow. And I said to Christine King, my casting director, I'm like, that guy's really good. And she's like, oh, yeah, he's great. What's he doing tending bar? She's like, that's Australia. You know, there's just not that many movies. You come be in a movie, and like a lot of guys in this movie, Rob Jones, are one of the best motorcycle riders in the world. I asked him what he's doing after the movie's done. He said, I drive truck. You know, it's what I do.
Wow.
I'm a you know, truck driver. I'm like, but you're so good. He goes, yeah, but there's no work. That's what we do, you know.
Yeah.
So you'll see these guys, and they're back to trending bar or doing drywall or doing whatever they do to pay the bills. There's just not that much work, and such a shame because they're so talented. They all deserve to be working.
You look like that Johnny Blaze.
I'm hoping this film will, you know, help bring more business to Australia and to Melbourne in particular, and employ all the great people that are there.
Real pros, really good.
Yeah.
I paid $10 to watch you splatter. But you didn't.
Looks like somebody's tripping out. You might be a big shot out there, Blaze, but
this scene here was really about, you know, showing the evil is what triggers the Ghost Rider. And so Johnny Blaze is trying to hold it in, and the Ghost Rider wants to come out. You can see Nick starting to laugh now. As they start to hit him, the Ghost Rider's laughing like, yeah, hit me, bring it on. This is going to set him free. This is a huge stunt. That's like 9 guys on wires. To put 9 stunties on wires at once.
That was a long day.
And in fact, one of the guys in there was from the group Stone Roses.
Oh, really?
Yeah, a classic rock band from Australia, and everybody's very excited to hear that he was in the film. This is again, just going for what was cool. A cool idea that he sets out these sprinklers. I don't think they'd really have sprinklers in a jail cell because guys would be hanging themselves left and right from them. And this is, you know, he rips his jacket, and we're going to upgrade now to his new look of the spikes.
One of those was one of the first shots we really worked out the look of Ghost Rider on, and the fire and everything.
Yeah, these really turned out well, these spikes popping out. And this was a real grab at the end that you guys pulled off for me here, you know? This was, again, to show that, you know, the Ghost Rider is on our side. He only punishes the evil. And this kid's innocent, so he's going to let him go.
I love this melting.
Yeah, that was a really nice call. And I like how they start to melt before he quite touches on this. The heat haze from his hand is beginning to bring him down. I thought that was a nice moment as well. Angry Anderson is that guy's name, that rock singer.
Oh, wow.
Famous Australian. This was actually, you know, great. That's all found. That was actually there in the church. That great shot of St. Michael, who, of course, is the one who cast out Lucifer during the Rebel Angel War in heaven. And that was actually St. Michael standing over with his foot on the back of the head of Lucifer on that mural. And I like that because that shows, you know, Wes Blackheart is able to look up at that and see his father's up, you know, and say, that's not going to be me. I'm not going to fall like him. That's also a great shot. Great CGI shot. This is, again, a little bit of a levity of the Ghost Rider resetting his jaw from this security guard, which I like quite a bit. Just bizarre.
Yeah.
Surreal.
Well, the fire was really difficult because it's a fluid dynamic simulation, and it's just really expensive in terms of the computation time to calculate it and to render it. Also because the tools really weren't there for doing the kinds of things we needed the fire to do. And so it was a matter of really building those tools and extending the capabilities of the fluid simulation and developing cheats for how we could get the fire to do things that real fire wouldn't do. So we would do little tricks for, like, when he would fly through the air or move really fast and the real fire or the fire simulation would go out, we would add little pockets of fuel waiting in the air for him to move through and things like that. But in the end, man, we had really, really directable fire tools. So it was just cool. We'd do lots and lots of takes and find the ones that worked for the emotional content of the scene. And
well, the thing that we found is that real fire just doesn't look very cool. Mm-hmm. It's very flickery and light and thin, and it's not strong at all. And it was really important to me that it never looked like the Ghost Rider is out of control, that he's on fire. Mm-hmm. It's really not, he's in control of it. Yeah. He always had to feel powerful and strong and in control of the fire. And because we don't have any of the great things that make a CG character, like lips or eyes or wrinkles, things like Gollum had or, Davy Jones had, we only got that blank skull. So I really needed that fire to become like an extension of his personality. It had to really feel like it was, that's what that's all we had to work with. Otherwise, it's just a blank slate,
I love that shot of the coming up out of the water and
flipping him the bird. That was a great moment. Who was the artist that did that shot?
Oh, a whole bunch of them, but Stephen Marshall came up with that water.
That's what you hope. You always, you storyboard something, you plan something out like I did, and then you see it and you hope it's as good as you envision, but sometimes it's better. Mm-hmm. And they add something and they don't know if you'll like it, and you're like, oh, thank God, you guys are geniuses. And that Ghost Rider just looking back and flipping the cops of the bird was one of those moments where we're like, yeah, that's the Ghost Rider. Yeah. That's the attitude, that's what you want. That was a great ad. You saw earlier when Ghost Rider went past the garage sign outside the police impound and the letters burned into rage, which all my gay friends keep reminding me is a club in West Hollywood. So for all the LA-based fans who are watching this,
who dress like Ghost Rider,
who dress like Ghost Rider anyway on the weekends, you'll probably get a kick out of that.
It was a cool thing with the fire on Ghost Rider becoming the character. Like, you and everybody was so concerned about being able to communicate emotion through a character without him having any ability to have a facial expression.
Yeah.
And, we talked about different ideas of replacing the skull between shots with different skulls that had different expressions and so on. But it's amazing how it works that when you get that, it's a perceptual illusion that you get the heat distortion and the fire and the shadows, and it's all moving, and your brain starts to put in the content there that's derived from the context of the scene.
Yeah. This is a scene that I really wanted in the film.
And we made the whole thing CG, so even though a lot of this, we'd shot plates on that set for other parts of the scene, but for that helicopter thing, we had to create the whole thing.
That was one of those days where I came home and I said to my wife, Susie, I said, I go, great news, I got my helicopter shot. She goes, that's great, baby.
You're pissing me off. Okay, sorry.
You should have joined us, Ryder. Soon we will have the contract, and then you'll only be a footnote in the history of the New Hell.
Time to clear the air. You're a slow learner, aren't you, Ryder? You cannot catch the wind.
I love this scene of Abigor. I thought we really got an interesting look on him. The artist that did this, and they came up with an interesting combination of the face coming off but being there still, and it's kind of a neat look.
And also quite disturbing that, you know, that burning and stuff, and the arms burning away. That was really interesting too, you know. And again, showing the Ghost Rider has to use different abilities, different powers to defeat each one of these demons. Now, this is again was the genius of what you guys did at SPI. Is I had him going straight over the edge and straight down, like a 90-degree angle. And this ramp up to slow motion and this beautiful shot was all a wonderful surprise. When I saw that, I just fell in love with it. Just genius work.
It was so much fun because we love any chance to contribute, you know, and that was a cool one. It just seemed like there was an opportunity there, and passed that on to the animation department, and they came up with some pretty wild variations.
Yeah,
it was
those guys
cool.
rock and roll.
Yeah,
man.
they're really good.
Unbelievable.
This shot was so amazing when we were shooting this, because this was one of the times where it was almost all there. Like, we put in Ghost Rider's head and his fire and the fire on the wheels, but that was a real set with all that destruction in the courtyard. And I just remember the night we were there, we were so stoked. It was like, oh, this is awesome.
That's Kirk Petruccelli, man.
Yeah.
That's this outside of that big bank building downtown, and just making all this fake busted up concrete and shit, and that sign back there and lighting that thing. I mean, it was just great. It was really, I mean, so much of this movie is really about having a couple departments, really all your departments, working together perfectly. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just people really digging what each other does and really respecting each other and just working together. And this is one of them. I mean, like you said, what Kirk did was so great, what you guys did is so great. You know, the performances, this was about that Beauty and the Beast moment, you know? So there's a lot going on here. There's emotion going on. She finally learns the truth. Great performances, great visual effects, great stunts. I mean, it was just really I think it's really a highlight moment, you know? It's hard to actually recover from that because it's so big, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that was always one of the worries of the film for me, was that, man, how do you top that night? Going up skyscrapers and up buildings and up bridges and down rivers and breaking out of jail. I mean, that's a huge set piece.
Yeah.
This is another great Nick thing. He says, they know who I am. They know who I am. Everybody. And to watch TV? What's the matter with you? It's again, because it's never a cool thing to say you watch a lot of TV. Who wants to say that?
Yeah.
It makes you sound like such a loser. But we do watch a lot of TV. And Johnny Blaze watches a shitload of TV, Monkey Videos and Discovery Channel, and he'll watch anything. Back to Roxanne watching TV. Oh, this is Sham in the background. I was glad this scene got back in.
Oh, you got it back in?
Yeah,
oh,
check this out.
excellent.
Sham worked here for SPI, for visual effects.
He was our data coordinator, or FTX1, as
see
he
him right
liked
here.
to be called. He runs out. He was really nervous. He didn't know what to do.
He didn't know what to do.
I told him.
I told Sean, he goes, what do you do? I said, here's your motivation. You're in Texas, and people go away for years to find a seed in the back of their car. So, one marijuana seed, and you're going away for years. So you grab your coffee cup and get the hell out of there.
That's awesome.
He booked. It was great. Again, this scene got cut out of the theatrical version just because it seemed like it was not it wasn't really necessary that Roxanne would be there looking for information. Again, that fell into the sub-story of her tracking down the Ghost Rider, but she doesn't need to do that. She knows where to find Johnny. She's already worried about him. She just goes straight to the loft to look for him. But again, Ava's terrific in the scene. Sham's great in the scene.
Carter Slade.
Legend has it he was a Texas Ranger. Man of
There's a tiny little nod here to Simon Birch, the first film I directed, which most people have never seen, on the headstone here for Carter Slade, where it says, "Into paradise may the angels take you," which is what was on Simon Birch's. A line from the movie about Simon, his favorite passage from the Bible.
What's he got to do with this?
Oh, I didn't remember that.
Remember that contract the stranger made with the people of San Venganza? The story goes.
There's only one bad thing about Australia, and this scene always reminds me of it. You know what it is?
Flies.
Flies.
So many flies.
Flies. Australia's the greatest country, man, but it's got a lot of flies, and it's so dry. They're in your mouth and in your eyes and your nose, looking for moisture. And
they're like a different species or something.
Well, they're horrible.
They have
they're smaller than our flies and black, and they're just everywhere.
And they're relentless. They don't care. They're not afraid of anything. They
That's
just
why,
keep landing.
The reason Kevin and I are thinking of it here because these are flies on Nick's face or his jacket, or there's a lot of digital fly removal in some of these shots. A very romantic scene between two kids at a tree can be ruined by one fly.
Or 80,000.
Johnny?
This is again, showing how great Donald Logue is. How wonderful of an actor he is, and funny, and he can take a line that I wrote, like, we've been riding the gravy train on biscuit wheels, and just make it sound so natural and so cool, you know. And then there he says, look, you're purdy and all. That's Donald, you know.
Oh, that's awesome.
He's such a good...
What for?
Yeah.
This gets out in the press, his career is over.
Yeah, trust me, his career's the least of it.
You know, I did get some flack from some women about the prevalence of breast in this film.
Oh, yeah?
So that was really interesting, yeah. Especially when I was in Spain, some of the women were bothered by it. But then in the next breath, they were all talking about Nick's body, looking at him in the mirror, how incredible he looked. And I was like, look, you can't have it both ways.
Yeah.
But I love him. So if there's anything you know that can help, anything.
Ava always said, look, I'm not blonde hair, I'm not blue eyes, I'm not the Roxanne from the comic book, but she's like, I can gain a little weight and the fun stuff grows. So she did that, and her boobs got bigger and hips got, and she looked great. Looked like a comic book girl, you know?
And it's a comic book movie.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
This is one of those little scenes that I cut this scene as well from the theatrical. And of course the big scene coming up, but just this little scene, I really miss it.
Oh, yeah.
And it was funny because when I did, Sam said to me, oh man, you had to cut that. We both just love this scene, even though there's no dialogue. It's just him looking at that watch, but I always loved it because it was also a little clue, you know, for honor beyond duty. It's just that he was once, in my mind, he was once a Texas Ranger. He was a man of honor, right? And that was just, you know, him hoping to get a second chance, looking at that broken watch.
Yeah.
I always loved it, you know? And,
yeah.
And of course, this scene, everybody is just fantastic. This is one of the biggest, probably the biggest cut of the whole movie was this scene. This was not in the theatrical version. The reason being is that ultimately it made Blackheart, I think, look a little dim, that he was able to track the scroll all the way to here, and then basically Caretaker says, I ain't giving it to you. And he's like, okay. And then he turns around and leaves, you know?
Right.
It was one of those scenes that was being written while we were shooting, and that's never a good place to be, but that's the truth of it. The shame of it is the scene's so good. Sam's so good. Wes is so good. You know, Daniel plays Wallow is so good. I mean, everyone is great. It looks great. The mood's great. It just ultimately we didn't need it. I don't think. Again, I'm still so close to it. Maybe and with the benefit of hindsight and some time, I'll realize that this was the best way to go. But I don't think so. And I like the effect that you did here on his face. It's really scary.
Yeah.
Really raging, you know?
Yeah, scary but quick, you know? Like subtle enough that it's like, ugh.
Which I think, you know, we did a lot of in this movie. It was always, you and I talked a lot about this, that what's scary is what you just barely see.
Yeah.
Or think you see, you know? There's a lot of that in the film.
You're gonna fall. Just like your father.
Yeah. You know, it's one of those things that we already have such a fantasy with Ghost Rider, and he's such a badass. And you think, well, how can I make my villain scarier than that? You can't. At least not unless you want to turn into a monster movie. You know what I mean? Where it's monsters fighting monsters. And I didn't want to do that. I think that people are scary, you know? Demons are scary, that they look like us, but they're a little up. That's scary, you know? And that's what I think Wes worked well with Wes and Peter both, you know, for Blackheart and Mephistopheles. You know, it's... Again, I always remember, you know, because we talked a lot about Wes's final look in the film as Blackheart in his demon form. And we went through a lot of different ideas. And I always remember, you know, Blade, and you know, how great Steven Dorff was when he played, you know, the villain. And the original ending was that he turned into Lamagra, the blood monster, which was like 7 stories tall, and Blade's fighting this huge blood monster. And the test audiences were like, no, we don't know what that thing is, you know?
Yeah.
We hate Steven Dorff. We want to see him get it. We want to see him get killed. And that's what I wanted to stay away from here. I wanted to make sure that we didn't lose Wes, you know, that we wanted to keep him, but also give him something more, you know?
Yeah, it was neat the way we sort of got the best of both worlds on that.
I think so, yeah.
Not even close.
That was cool. Donald was all worried when we were scanning him that we'd make him look goofy when he died.
Yeah, I can see that. It looks cool though.
Yeah, no.
It really just sucked the life out of him. It was a nice little effect, I think. This was, I mean, again, ideally you wish you had more, you know, more funds, more money. You could make this a much bigger scene. We had a couple different versions of the scene that went through, you know, pushed him out the window and fighting and whatnot. But ultimately it just had to become a real two-hander and just, you know, keep it very quick and down and dirty. It was an important scene because you had to show that Ghost Rider, for all of his powers, and let's face it, he walks through the hidden pretty easily, that he's inferior to Blackheart. You know, that Blackheart can just touch him and suck the life out of him. You see here his hellfire turning black and poisoned and sickly. And you realize that he's no match for Blackheart. It's an important thing to get across heading into the showdown. You want your hero to be the underdog, which is a tough thing to do with the Ghost Rider.
Mm-hmm. That was more pathetic. You are him. Now, listen to me and try to get it through that thick skull of yours. You don't work for my father anymore. You work for me. Get the contract from the caretaker. Bring it to me in San Venganza. And maybe I'll...
One of the ways to really make Wes's character a lot more frightening was to mess with his voice, and we did a lot of work with that. There's a lot of different animal sounds in Wes's voice when he gets angry. You especially see it in this scene. And it was like I found that young cats worked really well for him. So you hear a young jaguar in his voice, a baby jaguar, a lot. And I like that idea of the young upstart who's trying to replace his father, who's, you know, almost like a temper tantrum. And it's weird, and it's an unnerving sound. And the sound design is Dane Davis designed the film, was just brilliant. He won an Academy Award for the Matrix films, and he really was able to bring that sound, the sound of the Ghost Rider as well, really to be something new, where he would take Nick's voice and he would add different animal sounds, play it backwards, set it on fire, and drag rusty chains through it, and things like that really gave it some flavor. It was important for me because I wanted to make sure Nick didn't get lost when the Ghost Rider was on screen. Whenever we could, we'd try to make it Nick's body or Nick's voice or Nick's skull even, you know, that you guys would just base off, just so you know he was in there.
Trust me. Why is that?
This was, it was interesting cutting that scene that you saw earlier of Caretaker getting beaten. You know, in the theatrical version, Johnny shows up and Caretaker's just sitting there waiting for him. So we had to digitally take out his bruises and blood here that you see in his lip. So it appears that Caretaker's just hanging out, you know, at the shack when Johnny shows up and not having just got his ass kicked. So that was a big change to make when we cut that scene, but it seems to work. This is a great scene between these two guys. Two wonderful actors who are really, really terrific here, and really a literal handing off of the torch here. This last final ride was a piece of concept art that Crash McCrary did for me way in the beginning, that I put up on the wall and I put on my screensaver and just made sure. I remember just thinking, if I can get that, I got a movie, you know? If I can get those two Ghost Riders tearing through the desert together, just for a brief moment, that's something no one's ever seen before, and that's spectacle. That's something you know that you'll never see.
Yeah.
And then when we got that, I knew, you know, we're going to be all right.
That was so much fun, that scene, to be able to make it exactly the vision.
And this one, man, that was a great shot. That the Old West Ghost Riders became like my favorite character. You know, I just think he's so groovy, and the horse, it just turned out so well, and. These two tearing off with, again, Spider-Bait doing a cover of Ghost Riders in the Sky. It just felt like such a great big movie moment. This is when I felt like we really recovered action-wise from the heights of the second act set piece, you know? Because like, okay, how can we top it? Well, we'll do this.
Yeah, this was fun.
This was previs from the very beginning. We really pulled it off.
Nothing photographic here. It's all computer generated.
Yeah, the first real thing in the shot is, I think, just the foreground of him on the bike coming up. This is all CG, all CG, all CG. Here, this foreground. This is the only real thing so far.
Yeah, it's a green screen foreground there. Yeah.
And again, just sense of humor with the lizard, which I wanted to be a rabbit, because it'd be really funny if he was running around in circles on fire. But they deemed that was just too sick. So I guess we could toast a lizard.
Stick to the shadows.
Just started laughing. First time I saw this together, I just started cracking up. I thought, that's a boy movie right there.
Yeah.
Two skeletons tearing through the desert.
Yeah.
One throwing the other one a shotgun, saying "stick to the shadows." That's not a 4-quadrant film right there.
This is the end of the trail for me. I got nothing left. I could only change one.
So much went into those shots.
Oh man.
Desert. We had to model that whole desert with thousands and thousands of bushes and cactus and the whole sky and all the plateaus.
And your wife Martha did some of the paintings.
Yeah,
yeah,
she painted the whole surrounding panorama with the plateaus and the sky, the pre-dawn sky, and it was quite a process with all the
gorgeous work.
Bits of fire, all the elements of fire, the trails of fire, and the footprints of fire.
I always love this. Just a small thing too, is he evaporates into the night air, you know, and you get the idea that God really did give him a pass. God said, "Okay, you've done your part. You've made up." Again, the movie's about second chances, and he just got his. This is a scene that was cut from the theatrical. It wasn't necessarily needed, but I like it. Wes actually has laryngitis this day while we were filming. And you can hear it in his voice. His voice is cracking a bit as he's taunting her. But I kind of liked it. It sounded kind of sick. And
it's almost dawn.
It sets up Wallow in the river when he says, "Dawn's coming, slow him down." And I think what I did like about the scene is you realize beyond a shadow of a doubt that he intended to use up all these demons, these hidden.
Right.
He never thought they were going to last.
Right.
He just totally used them. And just he had a plan all along. This was actually based on a real place called Menindee Lake in Australia, where these twisted trees really do rise up out of the water like this. It's pretty spectacular, and we went there and scouted that. But again, just we couldn't control it the way that we could on stage. So we built this huge swamp on stage in Melbourne at the studios there, Central City Studios, and filled it up with water and smoke. But it's really exactly, if you get a chance to go to Australia and check out Menindee Lake, it's pretty spectacular. I've said this a number of times, but it's true. This movie's really a Valentine to Melbourne, Australia. This was again trying to show another challenge for the Ghost Rider, fighting totally out of his element. It was again, one of those that I wanted a bigger set piece, a bigger death, but ultimately you got to get to the showdown. And but I love the look that you guys gave Wallow there, and the eyes, the flesh burning away from Johnny as he lights up. This was something that you guys came up with at the very end to show him shooting fire from his palms, toasting up Wallow, which I think turned out quite well.
Much better than the hell fart we'd
originally we had him kind of exploding like an atom bomb, but it turned out to look like a hell fart, as they named it, which was, he just don't want to go out like that. Poor Wallow. He deserves better.
You got fire and water, you got to do that right.
That's right. And this is our showdown. I mean, the idea for me was that the film was always this kind of Western vibe, but as it gets further towards the end, closer and closer to the end, it's literally becomes high noon. It becomes a deserted ghost town. It becomes, that great moment we've been waiting for, a true Western with these kind of really funky Gothic vibe to it. And this entire town was built by Kirk Petrocelli and his great crew, and a giant meat locker had to move all the meat out of here, and we turned it into a whole village.
Yeah,
so it's just
freezer
spectacular.
warehouse.
Yeah, it's just absolutely, it's amazing when you look at it. It's a shame sets like this have to be torn down because they're just magnificent.
Unbelievable. That set was so incredible. All the the adobe and the rocks and all that stuff. And Kirk was telling me they had a way of sculpting that stuff there that they don't do
here in the States.
That they have their own technique that's much more efficient and looks really cool.
Yeah, I know he was a bit dubious of it, but he became a convert after. He really loved it.
So real.
Yeah.
One of the drawbacks of shooting in that meat locker is that they had a hell of a time lighting this set, because the lights were right down on the thing.
They were down low.
So that was one of the things where most people don't realize, but we did quite a bit of relighting of this set in post and bringing it all down darker and plus the light, the sun coming up becomes a story point, so in a way it was maybe easier that way, because then we could manipulate it more. We were already into it.
This was the actual set. This became a big set piece because of the race coming up, which come out. I still wish we had a bigger fight. That's always the tricky thing, or something like this, is that so much money goes into just the research and development for Ghost Rider, and you know what I mean. And he's a great. Obviously, he's our hero. He's the character, but it's going to still cost you X amount of dollars every time you see him. And that's always the frustrating thing, is that you got to keep paying every time that you show a close-up of them or anything else. So you really got to plan your scenes out, and they got to go to bare minimum, because if you start covering it like a normal scene with all different angles and stuff, it's going to, it would be prohibitively expensive. So I think, sometimes that's what people forget when they see these fight scenes, is that Ghost Rider is a visual effect every time. And so that brings your scale down, unfortunately, sometimes. I would like to... if we're ever lucky enough to make a sequel to this film, it would be great, because you can jump right into it. It's already built. The Ghost Rider. It's all that money is done. There's no origin story, none of that.
Yeah.
I think that you can just jump right into it and really make some spectacular fight scenes. This is great work by Ava as well. I mean, she's reacting to tennis balls on sticks and things that aren't there, and air guns, and it's a tough thing to do without feeling foolish, but you really see it. You really feel like she's in it.
Yeah.
Love that. I love the race. I thought they turned out great, Kevin.
Thanks.
Really happy with them.
I could see them when we were there shooting them on set, but it was so, with nothing there. Ava running around and this big, beautiful set, but no wraiths.
Yeah. Yeah.
And of course, everybody else on the crew, people can see what they do and that they're good and everything, whereas when I'm there for months with you guys on set, I haven't done anything yet. So nobody, I'm gonna know it's gonna be cool. Wraiths flying around, inky black vapor. It's gonna be cool. Everybody's like, yeah, okay. Well, it better be.
Yeah, exactly. It better be, Mac.
You talk a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a huge leap of faith, isn't it?
Yeah.
That we all have to make.
Ellen, it's hard for that long, to go through the whole process and not be able to go, look, I'm good, honest.
Yeah.
See, look.
Yeah. This is, I'll tell you what's great about this is Wes Bentley.
Yeah.
Watch his body movement here, getting hit by these bullets. There's no wires or anything pulling him. He's just jerking he tore his stomach muscles, actually. Bam, right there. See all that? There's nothing been sped up or anything. All those are really him jerking violently his body. It's just amazing to watch. It's like a marionette.
Our thing's so much better, because we had so much to work with in terms of his performance and putting in the soul mist and the wraiths flying out of him when he gets shot.
Yeah, you really buy it. So much work you guys put into all this section.
Really hard.
It's just huge.
Well, this is the part where we kept Wes, but got a pretty creepy demon too.
Yeah.
And you never get a handle on it. It's always moving, changing, shifting, so that it never feels like a Halloween mask or a goofy thing.
Yeah. I thought that was the real breakthrough that you had on that, was that when it was shimmering in and out, you knew you were seeing something different,
Yeah.
That you weren't seeing a makeup effect. what some of them look like in the earlier things, you know, that we were doing.
Yeah.
I love that shot of Ava coming in with her torn dress and dirt on her cheek and her breast out and her shotgun. It's just like, that's what we're talking about. You know what I mean? Just
Very
like
Raquel Welch.
Yeah, it's an
Just
icon.
awesome.
You know, it's and this also I thought turned out great. There's so much to look at. Yeah, hell crap as it was known. So much to look at here. I love that guy in the back there dragging his spine.
Yeah.
You know, and unfortunately you can't see him that well. You know, or at least your eye goes to everything else.
But I think
something to look for.
subliminally, it's all that stuff. We try to put stuff everywhere in the frame so that, you know, it bears repeat viewings and I think you feel a lot of that detail. If it isn't there, you know, you miss it.
Yeah. A Hellfire shotgun. I was glad I got that in too. Again, just another cool power of the Ghost Riders. He's got so much cool shit that he can do.
How does it feel to have all that evil inside of you? All their power.
And by now, he's gotten control over it. We've seen him in the movie trying to get control out of it, and we see now that he can just call upon it when he needs to, and once he's in shadow. That was a great. Yeah, you always love that.
Yeah,
Him like in the shadows. You love that
I love
look.
this backlit Ghost Rider where the skull is dark and the fire is bright around it.
Yeah. And then we had to amp up the penance stare, so it's even bigger than
and you know, this really hinged on. We had the wraiths in here and all these other victims, but it was Wes's performance that really drove this one.
Yeah.
Like, he did that thing where he was just screaming and crying that night, and he had that laryngitis.
Oh, it was
and it was just gut-wrenching. I mean, it made me cry just watching him. It seemed like I was worried about him, like when he did that take, because it just seemed like, oh, that's almost something's going on there.
That's the great thing about actors like Nick and Wes, is that they know they're being in a comic book movie. They know they're in something that's fun, and it's not, you know, they don't, but they'll go for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're right. I mean, Wes just, you know, he went for it, and he went somewhere really deep just for that little piece there.
Yeah.
Well, for me, I really want it again because I don't have, you know, the lips, the eyes, the wrinkles of a CG character. The fire had to become part of his personality, and so I wanted it to show his mood as well. When he's angry, it's white hot and tall. When he's sad, he literally is in his blue period, and it'll get lower. And I thought this was a really particularly beautiful scene, showing her reaching through the fire, not afraid, and the flames parting for her hand. It really, this to me was the best example, this in the bottom of the skyscraper, of showing how the fire could be used for mood. I think.
Yeah, and the blue fire too is so. I mean, it was tough to pull off, because the thing you don't realize about blue fire is that it doesn't actually read over anything except black, because it's almost invisible. You know, it's at that spectrum. But I thought we reached a nice balance there, where you read it and it reads as the blue fire. But so often we did a lot of experiments and so on, and a lot of them you just go, that looks cartoony or weird. You don't read it as fire.
Yeah. Here we see that Johnny has which I think turned out nice, that he's doing exactly back to him what has been in his nightmares, of the devil's eyes lighting up and stuff that I did quite late in the DI. I thought this paid us off nicely, that he's showing that now he has control over this power, and this is the ultimate hero's journey, is that now he's made it all this far, and he could give it up and get his life back, and he decides he's going to keep the power and use it to fight against evil. There's a nice speech from Nick here, I thought, as well, too.
Yeah, he finally confronts the guy that's really wronged him.
You can't live in fear.
And this was the version that we went with at the end, of just seeing, just a hint of the devil before he goes.
Yeah, it's just, you know, that show me the true face of evil thing is such a slippery slope. I think it works better to get that hint of it and let people's brains do the work, you know.
I think so too.
So, where will you go now?
Wherever the road takes me, I guess.
This back to the location where they started at, saying their goodbyes, and the idea that you know, Johnny Blaze now is the police are looking for him. He can't stay. He's got to finally kiss her and say goodbye and get on with the next stage to find basically whatever the devil's going to throw in front of him. You know, things are not going to get worse for him before they get better.
But come on, they're going to hook up later, right? Come on. They got to. They're so good together and everything. And after going through all that, you just want to see them be together.
They're pretty cute together, these two, I got to say. This is, again, a comic book graphic novel kind of approach. It's corny as shit, the ending, you know, but I don't care. I want it to be corny. I want to see the old initials on the tree, and
it's right for the thing.
Half the audience is going to roll their eyes and go, please, you know what I mean? You either buy into it or you don't. And this is a fable. And again, the great
tree and the movement in it is great.
Great work from Spiderbait and covering the song and the lonely guy on the road. And again, you're going to see him. This is all Australia, but through the artistry of Kevin Mack's wife, she's now in the American Southwest, even though he's on the same road probably.
I love the little dusty beams of light back there.
Awesome.
That was cool.
This is probably the toughest shot in the whole movie, which is, you know, was a tough one. It was never designed to go this far, but we did the best we could.
We only had 4 tubes of toothpaste, some crayons, and a paper towel tube, and but we made that shot. So,
why did it cost so much then? That's my question.
Well, do you have any idea how much my my haircuts cost?
I thought you cut your own hair.
Well, I've got to pay myself.
Again, Pick did all the titles here for us at the end, and this is what it's funny because so many people have asked me where they can get this song. Soundtracks have been such in the toilet lately for films. It hasn't come out as of now, but I think they're going to release it as a single on iTunes because it kicks ass.
That's awesome.
It is great. Well, that pretty much wraps it up. Thanks for joining me, Kevin.
Hey, thanks for having me. It was fun.
Movie wouldn't be what it is without your contribution and bringing the Ghost Rider to life.
Well, it was just the coolest experience ever from start to finish, all the way through. A really good time, and everybody involved was really great and really into it.
You know, the truth of the matter is that I always feel like you can't control what's going to happen when you're done with a movie. You know what I mean? People are going to come or they're not going to come. Critics are going to love it, they're not going to love it. The only thing that you can really control is the experience of it. And so I make sure to have the best time I possibly can.
Yeah.
You know, because at the end of your life, it's just about experiences. And I had the greatest time making this movie, and I worked with the coolest people. I was in the best place in the world. And that's what I look back on now, you know, and the fact that movie came out and was a big hit, and that's all great, but that's not what I think about. I think about the times we had making the flick, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
And so it really went down as really one of the best times of my life.
Yeah, me too. It was a real adventure and really fun.
All right, well, thanks for everybody for joining us on Ghost Rider.
Thank you.